Going on, Zermata here with the top 10 free-to-play FPS games for 2013-2014. At number 10, we have Tribes Ascend, which has been published and developed by Hi-Rez Studios. And Tribes is a classic take on a classic and storied franchise from the older Tribes games. Really, the main focal point of Tribes is the skiing mechanic, which allows for unparalleled, fast-paced gameplay that you really can't find in most other games. One of the issues, though, with Tribes is the fact that the developers have kind of shifted their focus away from the game and have diverted most of their resources onto Smite, another game that they're recently developing. So, kind of one thing that's actually happened recently is some of the players have discovered a source development kit, which allows them to actually have the possibility of pushing and producing their own content and mods for the game. So just based upon that, Tribes made the list at number 10 because not only for its solid gameplay, but the prospect and capability of actually having an open source community that can actually contribute their own content at their own discretion. Number 9, we have Warface, which has been published and developed by Crytek. And at its core, Warface is basically a fundamental FPS game fit for the modern era. Warface utilizes actually a web-based version of the CryEngine. So you have the amazing Unreal graphics that you are normally accustomed to in games like Crysis on the web browser, which allows for players that have not so good of a gaming rig to actually play Warface at reasonable frame rates. So Warface kind of prepares gamers for the future, with cloud computing becoming a huge push in the recent years. And Warface is kind of a testament to that. Aside from that, Warface at its core, like I said, is a typical FPS game. One other kind of a major feature that they're kind of trying to push for is the team support system, which allows players to work together to access usually inaccessible areas and regions. And that really defines Warface as its own game. Alongside PvP, Warface also offers co-op game mode for players to enjoy. Number 8 on the list is Hawken, which is a fast-paced FPS game developed by Adhesive Games and published by Meteor Entertainment. Hawken is a mech warfare-based game. Kind of one of the issues in the beginning with Hawken was it was severely overhyped, and that kind of hurt it in the overall grand scheme of things. So after a disappointing launch, Hawken still has been a solid game in terms of producing content on a consistent monthly basis, and really has resulted in Hawken providing an limitless array of customization at your fingertips. So if you were a big fan of the MechWarrior games back in the day, or you really are itching for some mech gameplay, Hawken's definitely something you want to try out. Number 7 on the list is Soldier Front 2. The American version is being published by Area Games, and it's developed by Dragonfly. Soldier Front 2 at its core is a solid first-person shooter by offering a competitive environment that has been seen to really be a huge asset for the game and the Far East versions of the game, such as the Korean version and the Japanese version. So pretty much the American version is trying to emulate and replicate that success from the competitive aspect, and it's been highly marketed as a competitive game. Soldier Front 2 has been offered various community events and tournaments and has been a big emphasis for the game from day one. Aside from that, though, Soldier Front 2 offers pretty much an FPS mandatory zombie mode. That's pretty much a commonality for most free-to-play FPS games nowadays. And they also have a MOBA-inspired hero mode that's pretty interesting and a pretty cool twist on MOBA games in general. One kind of a downfall, or one kind of a negative mark about Soldier Front 2, there's been some rumblings and some issues with the community. There's been some rumors about the game being somewhat toxic. But if you can overcome that, Soldier Front 2 is definitely a game you can try out. Number 6 on the list is Combat Arms, developed by Dubik Studios and published by Nexon. One major gripe about Combat Arms is pretty much the pay-to-win label. The game is severely pay-to-win, but if you can overcome that one fatal flaw, you have really at its core a model free-to-play game that offers monthly content updates, has an endless amount of players available in-game at any given time, And the large player base and the continual updates have really shown that Combat Arms is going to be a game that's going to be something for the years that'll survive. So if you're looking for a game that has stability and not a game that you might think might die after a couple of years, then Combat Arms is definitely a game you can try out. Number 5 on the list is Alliance of Valiant Arms, developed by Red Duck Studios and published by Area Games. Similar in aspects to Combat Arms with the continual updates, continual content. There's a lot of different content at your fingertips. Does have sort of a pay-to-win label as well, which is kind of the same aspect as Combat Arms. So if you can overcome that label, Alliance of Valiant Arms is definitely a game to try out. And similar to Combat Arms and similar to Soldier Front, you have co-op mode, you have zombie mode, you have escape mode. You have a lot of different things for different players, so it really does appeal to a majority of gamers out there. So Alliance of Valiant Arms offers pretty much anything for everyone and has enough content to keep gamers happy for a good amount of time. Number 4 on the list is Blacklight Retribution, developed by Zombie Studios and published by Perfect World. Blacklight possesses an unlimited amount of customization and personalization options available to the player and delivers all that in a beautiful game that takes full advantage of the Unreal 3 engine. Really, one of the few free-to-play games I've considered to be not pay-to-win. The game really does give you a fair chance to play the game and play it on an even level with players that actually spend a lot of money or commit a lot of time to the game. Aside from that, really, Blacklight's just a great core game that players can really spend a lot of time enjoying. Much like any other free-to-play game, you have your traditional FPS modes and you have your zombie mode as well. It has a siege mode, it has a net war mode, a couple of unique modes that kind of give a different personal take on the game. And kind of one of the most unique features about Blacklight's the HRV, the Hyper Reality Visor, which basically gives you legalized wall hacks. So if you want to try something different, Blacklight's definitely up your alley. One of the knocks I have though for the game is the game really hasn't been supported in terms of content. It's one of those games that can go a few months without actually getting content, as opposed to some of the majority of the other free-to-play FPS games on this list that have pretty much monthly or bi-monthly content updates. So if you can get past that, there's still a lot of good content to enjoy in Blacklight, and it's still a great game nonetheless. Number 3 on the list is Crossfire. Really, Crossfire is an example of a game that can really be something special and doesn't have to do anything over the top. At its core, Crossfire has been a successful game because of its gameplay first and foremost. There's a low skill gap level, so it's easy to pick up. A lot of different game modes, a lot of different content like most other free-to-play FPS games. And there's also the aspect of esports making a huge contribution to the total vision of the game. Crossfire actually brought in the most amount of revenue worldwide last year, over League of Legends, over any other free-to-play FPS game or any free-to-play game out there last year. So Crossfire has been successful, and it's been successful for years, and that's really why it's so highly ranked up in my list. Number 2 on my list is Team Fortress 2, developed and published by Valve. Originally a buy-to-play game, then made its way over to becoming a free-to-play model. There's not really much to say about TF2. It's a fundamentally sound game. It's one of those games that people just have to try. Simple as that. And mechanically and from a game design standpoint, it's a solid game. And that's just all augmented by the community itself. The fact that it runs on the Source engine provides the capability for dedicated servers, which is really something that's lacking on most every free-to-play game out there. The community in general is really good. You have the kind of the outreach and the potential from Valve and Steam to kind of do some pretty cool stuff, such as the Steam Marketplace, such as Source Filmmaker. The list goes on. And those qualities, I feel, make TF2 one of the most appealing free-to-play FPS games out there in the market right now. Number 1 on my list is PlanetSide 2, developed and published by Sony Online Entertainment. And really, PlanetSide 2 at its core is the successor to a very ambitious PlanetSide 1 at the time. And it's been said before, technology wasn't the best at the time to make PlanetSide 1 the game it should have been. And now with technology, of course, rapidly advancing and changing since, PS1 was originally developed, you have really a game that appeals to most players and most fan bases out there. You have infantry combat, you have vehicle combat, and you have air combat. So you have pretty much everything for everyone, for the Battlefield players and for the Call of Duty players, and for everyone in between. Likewise, you also have the immense and obscene amount of customization at your fingertips in terms of personalization and the design of your player, and just the amount of weapons and items available for your players' loadouts. So you have all this content available at your fingertips, and it's just constantly being updated. The battles are huge, the player base is huge, and the game is appealing not only from that front, but the fact that the community and the developers are highly involved with the community itself. So developer live streams, constant communication, transparency throughout. They have an open beta server, so you can really see the content before it's actually put in the game, and your feedback actually does make a difference in the game. So all those qualities and just the general state of PlanetSide 2 really makes it the top free-to-play FPS game, in my opinion. Of course, opinions change and opinions differ, so people definitely have their own ideas for their own lists, and that's fine and dandy. Hopefully you guys found something useful and something you can try out in this list of top free-to-play FPS games. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to add anything to this commentary, definitely leave something down below in the comments box. And thanks for watching as always, guys. Much appreciated.